The economic summit is underway, and once again, leaders of 7 major industrialized nations are gathered together looking for solutions. Solutions to problems of inflation, unemployment, and trade, to name just a few. Brian Stewart reports on the arrival of the leaders.
It began with a noisy procession of helicopters, bearing the leaders at intervals to the rambling wooden lodge at Montebello outside Ottawa. The first in, Helmut Schmidt, the only veteran of every summit. He comes here determined to warn against the dangers of spreading recession and of protectionism in world trade. Margaret Thatcher of Great Britain came bearing plenty of her own worries. Economic troubles at home, riots in British cities, Northern Ireland. Her position at this conference is not strong. Then the key player, U.S. President Ronald Reagan, the only leader to shun the use of a Canadian helicopter in favor of his own. He's ready to counterattack against the complaints of others that U.S. economic policy is self-centered and its foreign policy rudderless. He's aware he's perceived as ill-equipped and inexperienced on the world stage and is determined to make an impression this time. More than ever before, this summit has its ideological differences. After the conservative Reagan came the socialist president of France, François Mitterrand. He believes in increasing public spending to fight unemployment ahead of inflation, opposes many U.S. policies, and how he'll get along with Reagan is a major question here. Italy's Premier Giovanni Spadolini, former journalist and professor, is believed to be a closet Ronald Reagan fan, but his influence here will be small. Japanese Premier Zenko Suzuki will be strong on backing aid to the less developed world and is likely to come under attack for restrictive Japanese trade practices. He's expected to make promise of some concessions in this area. The other leader attending, Gaston Thorn, president of the European Communities, would not normally attract much notice, but he arrived in the wake of a bizarre tragedy. Yesterday, the wife of his chief aide killed the aide, then electrocuted herself. Overseeing arrivals, the chairman, Pierre Trudeau. He appears to have succeeded in his drive to give the question of aid for the less developed world a priority place on the agenda. Leaders paired off quickly for bilateral talks. Reagan met with Schmidt on a golf cart, then had his first meeting with Mitterrand. Later, the complete lineup at the dinner table. The leaders of a select club, together representing half the world's gross national product, or $6,000 billion. And the summit leaders finally got down to summit business tonight at the table, in the first of 16 hours they'll be spending together in heavily guarded and fairly splendid isolation.
Brian, traditionally at these economic summits, this first night is devoted to international politics, is it not?
Yes, and it was tonight, Knowlton, and there is a special interest, of course, to sound out Reagan in private. But they all want to talk about problems they have in their minds at the moment, Poland, Afghanistan, and the latest Middle East news, the Israeli raids inside Lebanon. That's going to be very much on their minds.